Is there a persistent atmosphere of jealousy within comics? Meaning creators who do amazing work, are they jealous of each other? How does that play out? Hey there, this is Perch. Well, this topic is more sad to me than anything. I think having gone to a lot of cons and been with comics for a long period of time. I mean, there was I picked up comics when John Byrne was kind of coming into his career, and so to think of him as way past the prime now and kind of out to farm, so to speak, it's a weird thought. I mean, and just for the record, I don't see him that way. I mean, the guy still posts up really amazing pages worth of work. One of the things about Byrne that I think is understated, I don't know, that people forget is he's out there right now and he's drawing pages and panels. And I don't know how long it's taking him. Maybe it's taking him months to do one page. I don't know. But he still is drawing pages. And what happens to a lot of creators, artists, as they get older, is they start doing, pure splash, covers, and they can kind of do that kind of work. But you notice the panel work starts to fall apart. It's almost like a muscle that starts to atrophy a little bit. But Byrne does not. I mean, his stuff looks tight from panel to panel. It's still right there. And I mean, again, I cannot imagine he would be that expensive. But when you see these like Marvel 1000 and you're doing these celebration issues with like huge creators, why in the world are you not going to Byrne and having him do some work for you? And you're paying Claremont. I mean, just seems like, hey, we've got these two people, one of which we're already kind of paying not to work. Why not throw a title their way? I don't know. One of the big mysteries of the day. But what there's two things that kind of got me onto this topic. The first was Gerry Conway posts this tweet. He's kind of reprinting. There's some Apple news about them launching this TV service and kind of all the things they're going to get. And primarily, a lot of the people Apple is bringing on are a lot of what I would call '90s icons. Jennifer Aniston's front and center. A lot of kind of those stars, that era of celebrities. And Conway is like, hey, these people are all, Jennifer Aniston, Oprah Winfrey, Steven Spielberg. Why are you throwing all this money away on those old icons? Why, we'll get with the times, Apple. And it's it's funny because I mean that tweet is kind of indicative of, to me, a lot of the kind of the jealousy and the weird behavior that goes on in comics after a while, where there's almost kind of an eat their own mentality. But why this tweet is so funny, I mean, so first off, if you're forming an entertainment venture and you're a big kind of, big established corporation, you're not an up and comer, you have that money, you're Apple. There are worse bets than Oprah Winfrey. I'm just saying, if you're building an entertainment empire, I don't know. Oprah Winfrey, Steven Spielberg, yeah, those are crazy picks. Who would ever pick those two to help helm an entertainment empire? Um, are there younger, newer, fresher talent that may have some buzz and 2 to 3 years worth of career that you could probably get a cheap deal on? Sure, I'm sure those people exist. I think we see what that looks like in the vast number of failed kind of streaming services and ventures. I mean, I don't know. I found that tweet very odd, and then it's coming from Gerry Conway, who again I have respect for. I think he does good work, but it's like, eh, you know, um, calling out entertainment icons of yesteryear as no longer relevant to turn. I don't know. I'm just saying. I wouldn't throw that stone at that glass house if I were you. Just me. But you see a lot of this go on with kind of younger talent at older talent, and then vice versa. The older talent in comics just seems to get perpetually more and more bitter as time goes on, and it's definitely art as an industry, as a fad. I mean, there's trends, there's a particular style is really liked, and then it kind of burns out, and then people move on to a new style. I mean, you look in the '90s and kind of the extreme imprint by Rob Liefeld and kind of a lot of that art. There were a lot of artists that were drawing kind of just like that. And so you had a bunch of titles come out, and none of them did as well as the original. That's kind of the law of diminishing returns. But that style today is used completely for nostalgia. It's not what people, well, some people disagree with this, but it's not what the mass market is looking for. It's, you can get a major X title, you can get a Rob Liefeld title, and people will buy it for kind of the nostalgia purposes. But the tastes have kind of moved into other areas. You had your Oliver Capil era, and then you had your, I would like a return to the Alex Ross super realistic Julie Bell era myself. But anyway, everybody has their favorites. The point is, times and tastes change, and I'm sure there's some bitterness left behind when you're an artist with a particular style, and suddenly your style is not in the mainstream, and now you're watching some new people come up and get a chance up at the plate. That's kind of life. That's just how life is. You have your moments, and then you have to make way for others. That's how things go. But you see this consistent thread in comics, and it's a little bit more, I don't know, I don't want to say cruel, but it's sharper in comics than you see it with other areas. In Hollywood, you definitely see the sniping kind of back and forth, but because maybe it's such a big industry and there's so much money in it, you don't see kind of the real pettiness that you see with comics. I mean, I've had you think these people in some cases are adults, but I've been at cons where I remember one older established DC artist had a table and wasn't getting much attention, and people weren't kind of coming around, and the guy got progressively more and more bitter and just started sitting there kind of with an angry, grumpy face, and was kind of really short with fans, which then fed more lack of attention, if you will, to the table. And then he went up and went off to like a late lunch or somewhere. He just disappeared for about an hour, came back, clearly had a few drinks, and just started mouthing off to the other creators around him. Just just kind of really snide comments that got more and more cruel, to the point that everybody just ignored him more and more and more. And I remember thinking, wow, how do you go from kind of zero to self destruct in like 6 hours at a con? I mean, you've been to a lot of these cons. Surely, this isn't this isn't the first time you've encountered this. How are you? You're shooting your career in the face, and you're damaging your reputation with fans. What led to this? And a guy I'm talking to is like, oh, he does that. A lot of people do that. This is hard. This is hardly a isolated incident. And while you can shoot your career a bit by making yourself a real jerk, so many people do it that it's almost kind of an accepted behavior to have people kind of mouth off and just make asses of themselves at cons at various times. And then they can go and kind of do a mea culpa to their friends and everything else. But it's like the way he described it is, in the comic industry, there's people are always looking at each other with one hand out, like to handshake, and the other hand with a fist. And it's this constant, am I your friend or am I your enemy? And it can turn at any given moment. And nobody is truly ever, well, with some rare exceptions, very few people are truly dead in comics. You can do just horrible things and be accepted back in, but you're also never fully accepted back in. You're never fully accepted in the first place. Everybody is kind of half in, half out all the time, and it creates this very kind of ultra paranoid, ultra jealous community where there's if one person succeeds, if another creator succeeds, you will see this kind of flurry of, hey, congratulations, man, your work is great, I think you're wonderful. You see this stuff on social media. If somebody like Eisner time, when those awards are coming out, are some of the most sickening times. I'm just telling you, for people who are in the industry, know that the fans of people watching this, by and large, are just like the over the top fawning back and forth over, I got nominated. Oh, you got nominated. You're so great. I think you're great too. All that kind of stuff. It's like, it's just ease it, dial it back down a little bit. You guys, you overdo it. But it also has a definite sense of, oh, that's so great for you. I am so happy that you're having this success. Gritted teeth kind of, back and forth. It does not feel genuine. It feels very very guarded, and that's kind of that's kind of been part of the industry, like I said, for a long time, and part of it's just how the industry works and changes and shifts and evolves. But another part of it's just the the people involved. There's not the stable platform. There's not the mentorship. There's not the, there hasn't been this. Hey guys, let's create a strong, stable industry. It's more, a bunch of freelancers just kind of out for themselves, and it breeds mistrust. It breeds paranoia. It breeds an environment where nobody feels completely safe and secure, but on the other hand, everybody feels secure enough to act out and trust that it will be okay. And I think that's a dangerous combination. But this isn't new. This is a 30-40 year problem. You can go back forever. Even back, people will say, oh, that in the Jim Shooter days, he ruled with an iron fist and none of these shenanigans went on. No, absolutely, these shenanigans went on. I mean, the guy was a businessman and he took care of business and he had a lot of good things, but absolutely these shenanigans went on. Now, granted, I think people back then were a little bit less open with it. I think there was at least a little bit of more of a guarded, hey, I could tank my career, than today, where that feeling of safety exists pretty strong. But sign of the times, I guess. It's an interesting spot. I find myself reflecting on comics lately, in the decades that have passed, and kind of the behaviors that have come and gone, the ones that have stayed consistent, and this one's the one that always just makes me feel just a little sad, because you have these amazing adventures, these amazing characters, you have these bigger than life creators and images and everything else, and to have that, to know that underbelly exists. Um, sometimes less knowing is better. I mean, that's kind of the lesson of life, I think you come to sometimes. Anyway, what do you think? Do you see this? Do you see this kind of thread, this undercurrent of jealousy and kind of mistrust that goes on comics? What how do you think this impacts with the work? I mean, to me, I think that's one of the reasons why the stories and some of the work suffers at times, is because there's, the we'll talk metaphysical for a moment. The emotional energy is in the wrong place. Rather than crafting a powerful story that's going to connect with readers, there's this other drama that's playing out in the background, and I think you see it play out. So, what do you think? Do you see any of this? Am I barking up the wrong tree here? What can we do? What? How can the industry heal itself a little bit, where this is, or is it just it's been this way forever and it's just the way it's going to be? I don't know. Leave me a comment. Would love to know what you think. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notification. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.